knows his name for sure. He stands at 6'6", head and shoulders. Pray he never comes knocking at your door. Say that you once bought a heart or new corneas, but somehow never managed to square away your debts. He won't bother to write or to phone you. He'll just rip the still beating heart from your chest.
Girls, shouldn't have all eaten. Steve Cadet calling for you, your moderator, Michael Wexler.
All right, thank you very much, guys. We're going to go ahead and introduce the next panel, and that's Director Mr. Darren Lynn Bousman. Alrighty, well, thank you very much for taking some time out and talking with us.
Of course, sure.
Let's start off with an easy question. What got you into the entertainment industry, and what made you want to be a director?
I mean, I think the thought of going to a 9-to-5 job made me want to kill myself. So
Yeah, it'll do that.
Yeah,
I'm just sad all the time.
No, I mean, for me, I was never really good at sports, or college just kind of wasn't my bag, and so I just went to film school. I mean, I love watching movies, so I went to film school and said that this is what I want to do, and it was that.
Perfect. What are your, some of your major influences as far as directors go?
It's different. It's not necessarily directors. It's any movie that can emotionally fuck with me. So like Cannibal Holocaust, the first time I saw that, I was young. I was like 11 years old, and it truly scarred me. Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. Again, it's one of those movies that when you see it, it just completely fucks with you. And so to me, it was always these defining moments in my childhood of movies that shook me to my core and scarred my brain. And I mean, they continue now. I mean, a lot of the movies that do that now aren't even horror films. Like Requiem for a Dream. That's a movie that I watch, and it fucks with me so bad. It's not really a horror film, but it's one of those movies that just scar me. And so I think those type of movies throughout my life has kind of pushed me to make the movies that I've made.
Those mind-fucking movies are always the best ones.
So from your point of view as a director, what are a few things that are most challenging you have to deal with on set and throughout the production?
I mean, getting a movie made is the hardest thing. I'm actually in Atlanta right now, filming a movie. I just happen to be in Atlanta. We start production on Thursday. And that is, every time you get that point where you're actually on set and on pre-production, it's like, how the fuck did we get here? It's so hard, because when you're making a movie, you have all these obstacles working against you. Not enough time, not enough budget. You can't cast the people you need to cast. Probably for every one movie that I've had made, I've had 99 movies fall apart. For every one script I've sold, I've had 99 scripts that do not sell. And so you have this constant kind of routine of failure. Every morning it's failure, failure, failure. And then you get that one success, that one Saw 2, that one Saw 3, that one Repo, the Genetic Opera, marred in failure. And that to me is kind of awesome, because those of us that have made it have been able to continue to make movies. It's not that we're talented. I'm not fucking talented. I bet you guys, everyone in this room is more talented than I am. The difference is that when you get kicked off the horse 99 times, I'll get back on it that last time. And that becomes Saw 2. And so I think that the hardest thing is just the perseverance, not giving up, not going into that emotional depression of all of the failures that came before it. Because if you stick through the failures, you're going to find that one success, that one Saw 2 or that Repo or whatever it is.
Resiliency, then, is probably what made you successful.
Everyone that I went to film school with is better than I am. They absolutely are, but they gave up.
Yeah.
And I think there's the difference is I didn't give up. I stayed in Hollywood. I kept doing what I was doing. And these people that, they came to Hollywood with me, they became comfortable in their jobs. They became bartenders. They made more money than I did. They, became accountants, and they made more money than I did. And they became comfortable in these jobs. And here, the ones of us that did make it were starving and broke and went through this, kind of hell. And they then left the Hollywood thing. They were like, I'm going to open a restaurant. I'm going to be an accountant. And we just said, no, we're going to be filmmakers, and that's what we're going to do. And I think it was 26. So I came to LA when I was 21, and I did 5 years of that. And on that 6th year, I got Saw 2, which kind of started my career at that point.
It takes a lot of courage, man, so I appreciate that. So, what are you filming out now?
I don't know. Fuck it, I don't care. It's a thing called Saint Agatha. It's a horror movie set in a woman's convent. It's pretty fucking dark and fucked up. And it's really they haven't announced anything yet, so this is kind of me saying it for the first time. But yeah, it's a movie set in a convent in the 1950s. Yeah, it's a feel good, lighthearted.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So a lot of people have dubbed the Saw series as torture porn, which I think gives it a bum rap because I think there's a lot of character development in those films. What are your thoughts on sort of the entire series, the torture porn moniker, if you will?
I mean, it's badass that they call it that. I mean, I don't.
Exactly.
There's, what I think is hilarious to me now is when you turn on the TV now, be it if you're watching the Exorcist TV show or Hannibal, or even fucking CSI. I'm sorry, I have a mouth like a sailor, and I'm kind of drunk too, so there's the two together. They're so much more horrific than anything we ever did on the Saw films, ever. And I think, like, I went back and rewatched the Hannibal the series on TV, and I was like, how are they getting away with this? I couldn't do half of what they're doing right now. They do it on TV. I think that horror is in cycles, and so what's popular in 2003 is going to be out of popularity in a few years, and it'll cycle back around. I think that I was very lucky to hit it at that time with Zombie and Eli Roth and Greg McLean and all these guys that were making these kind of hardcore balls-to-the-wall horror films, but then they cycled out. And it's hard now because it's hard to get those type of movies made. It's hard to get those type of like really gratuitous, violent movies made. That said, I don't think the Saw movies were that. I think that we had some violence in them. But some of the scenes that people talk about being the most disturbing of the Saw movies had no blood in them. Like, people talk to me about how disgusting the needle pit is. You don't see anything in that. It's a girl jumps in a pit of fiber optic needles with no needle points in them. And so your mind fills in the gaps of with the sound design and the editing. But they're not hardcore. Go back and watch them. It's not as hardcore as I think we remember them to be. And it's funny because some of my favorite horror films I'll go back and watch now, and I'm like, I have these vivid memories of how disturbing they were, and you watch them now, and it's not. It's your mind. It's where you are in that time frame. So I'm glad that I was labeled in that group of those kind of amazing filmmakers, but I think it's kind of a joke now when you see that, again, what passes off on network TV now is much more hardcore than we did back then.
Well, we always talked about on our radio show that Rambo got the last one, and that was probably the most violent film I've ever seen. But it wasn't labeled horror, so I'm sure it got a little bit more leniency.
It does, and I think that when you're dealing with something that you're dealing with sadistic things such as serial killers, torturing people and things like that, it's a harder pill to swallow than some of the other films that do get passed off on lighter radios. So yeah, I don't know, but it's great. I'm equally as excited as an audience member to see how they reinvent the Saw franchise. I mean, there's been an announcement. I think it's this October 27th. The new Saw movie comes out, and I just am curious to see how that actually stands in today's culture and climate. Will a torture movie like that thrive, or will it again fall to the wayside?
And with the Saw movies especially, I think it isn't just gore for the sake of gore like a lot of those movies are. All the violence has a point to it.
And we tried that. I mean, yeah, that was a big deal for us, is that we wanted to make sure that we weren't just being gratuitous for the sake of being gratuitous. Like, there were reasons and there were themes behind it. And I think we also had such great actors. I mean, Tobin Bell, he made what could have been a caricature comic book villain into something that you cared about and actually was real. And I think that's the key to why the Saw franchise worked.
We actually had Tobin as a guest a couple times here at Days of the Dead. And it seems he's always very business-like, almost. Shawnee Smith called him scientific. Talk about working with him.
I've worked with a lot of people that kind of, most actors are just down-to-earth, laid back, go get a beer with them, fun people. That's not Tobin. I love that guy, but he terrifies me. Like, when you try to have a meeting with them, and like you're sitting there with this very innocuous meal of like apple pie, and the way he just cuts it and looks at you and says things so fucking like knives. It was terrifying. That said, he's one of the smartest, kindest men. Like, his son is his world, and he's got this son. I think his name is Cooper, and he's like the baseball coach for his son's baseball team. And I'm like, can you imagine Jigsaw being your baseball coach? So he's just. I think that's again why he's so good. Is, I mean, his steely look. He's got this very menacing look. And go back to some of his early movies, like he was in The Firm and he was in a bunch of Mississippi Burning. He just has a way to like look into your soul and tear it apart. So he's like that as a person too. A nice guy, but again, not a guy to screw around with.
That's a perfect way to describe it. He wasn't silly. He'd walk at pace across the stage the entire time we were talking to him, and want to talk to the people in the audience. He wasn't just a sit down kind of a guy. He's intense.
Now I feel lame. Do I do like calisthenics or something on the stage?
No, you're the brains. You're not supposed to do that stuff. So why was Saw 2 the only one that you were credited for writing for?
When I saw 2, 3, and 4 happen so quickly, I was 25 when I made Saw 2. And then, a lot of filmmakers will go a year or two in between movies. We did Saw 2, 3, 4, and Rebo within a year and a half period of time. So a year and a half, 2 year period of time. So when I was wrapping one, the next one was starting prep immediately. And so as a director, you have 10 to 15 weeks of post. And so I was editing the movie as they were prepping the next one. There was no time. There was literally no time. And when I was shooting Saw 4, they were in pre-production for Rebo. And so there was literally just no time when we were making the movies to do any of that. So I wrote Saw 2 years before I made Saw. There's this thing called The Desperate, which is kind of a story people know now, but I was a PA on X-Files, and I was fired from X-Files. And then I became a PA on this movie called Van Wilder, and I was Tara Reid's assistant. I was fired from that. And I was just angry. I'm still angry, but then I was really angry. And I was writing the script about my anger, and it was called The Desperate. It was about my desperation in Hollywood. And it was really kind of just vile, just horrible kind of word vomit that I just wanted to get out of myself. And I didn't think anyone was ever going to read it. And it was about these people that were forced to live in this house and kill each other. And I sent it around to a couple of people, and I got a phone call from Twisted Pictures that was they just finished Saw 1, and they were looking for their next follow-up. And so they hired me to direct the follow-up, not Saw 2, but their next movie called The Desperate. And I was in prep on The Desperate, and then Lionsgate said we need to make a Saw sequel now. We needed to come out next October, and they didn't have a script. And so then they said, well, wait a minute, what if we turn Bousman's script, The Desperate, into Saw 2? And so I really lucked into that. I mean, I was not supposed to direct Saw 2. And so my script had a serial killer in it. There was a twist at the end of my script. And so it was kind of a very easy thing for them to kind of adapt, putting Jigsaw into it and then writing the twist. So with that thing, it became Saw 2, and I became the director of Saw 2. And then I didn't have time to write, but then right after those movies ended, I started writing again, and the last few films that I've done, I've written, but that was why I didn't write Saw 3 or 4.
As a director, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mike.
As a director, what are some of the differences in writing, directing a film versus just directing a film?
I mean, for me, the writing it's a lonely process that you're locking yourself in a room and you're trying to figure out in your head how actors are going to sound, and it's kind of lonely and it's laborious. As a director, you're talking and communicating with people all the time. Like today, we start shooting on Thursday, and we had a production meeting today, and it's like literally 60 people around the table throwing questions and asking questions, and me running from place to place. So I prefer the directing process much more than the writing process. That said, what I like about writing is that as a director, it's a series of compromises. It's never my true vision. It's what we can afford. It's what the actor wants to do. It's what the costumers can actually create. As a writer, it's 100% you. You write everything down on a page, and then you sell that script. So for me, I like the creativity of writing more, but I like the process of directing more.
It seems to be super frustrating as a director to not be able to have your vision and have to. How do you deal with it?
Well, I think what people don't understand about directing is it's a series of compromises. But so I'll give you an example of a movie like Abattoir, which I just did. I had this movie come out a few months ago called Abattoir, and it was a script that we worked on for years, literally years and years and years. And we had this amazing script, and we go to, again, the only reason I'm telling this story is a little bit drunk, but we go to New Orleans and to go make this movie, and it was in 2015. And we had this amazing cast, and we had amazing sets, and we had amazing costumes, and it was very dark city vibe, and we had this sound stage, and it was incredible. And we were 4 days away from filming, or 3 days away from filming, and my phone rings, and I hear all the actors' phones ringing at the same time. So we're all there rehearsing. And everyone's getting called from their agents saying the movie's been shut down, you're going back to Los Angeles. Now this is after they spent at least $1 million on building everything. And we're days away from filming. And we're sent back to Los Angeles because there was an issue with the remainder of the money. So I'm back in LA, 6 months pass, we get a phone call, Abattoir's back on. We're going back to New Orleans. Now the thing you have to understand is filmmaking is a business. It's as much as you want to think it's about art, it's not. It's a business. The hope is that you can get your art through the business. So to make a movie, the majority of movies are financed by foreign sales, which means I am equal to a number in the foreign marketplace. So when I was doing a movie like Saw, and it was #1 at the box office, my number was here. And as you continue to make movies, your number raises, lowers, and as you put actors on, it changes your number. So Abattoir is equal to a number. Well, we just spent $1 million the first time around. So now we go back the second time around, and we're there the second time around. We're there 2.5 weeks. We recast the movie, new crew comes in, and on the second day of the second week, we're shut down and sent back to Los Angeles again. That was probably $300,000 or $400,000 that was spent. So now Abattoir has never filmed a day. We've already spent $1.4 million. It happened 2 more times. The third time that we had a death that occurred, luckily not on set, nothing like that. The person died in his house, but that shut us down again. And so now a year has passed, and I'm on to another movie. I think Abattoir's dead. And we get called back on the 4th time. And on that 4th time, everyone was like, we've got to make this movie. We've gone through hell. We've gone through high water. We have to do it. So now when we come back to make the movie for the 4th time, we have to compromise everything. The script that we had, 60 pages had to be ripped out of it. The sets that we could no longer shoot in a soundstage, that had to be shot in the real world. The costumes that we once had at one point, had to get rid of those. And so you're left with this thing, and again, Abattoir is such a personal project of mine, and I have 2 options: not make the movie, or continue on with another version of the movie. And so I make the other version of the movie because, again, I want to see Abattoir on the screen. The thing is, the audience that pays to see Abattoir, and you guys pay your $4 to see it on iTunes, don't see the 2.5 years that went behind it. You see the movie that's on the screen. And I think that's kind of what being a director's like a lot of time, is you have to stand by whatever it is you create. But there's a whole other story behind it that no one gets to see. And I think to me that's been the most frustrating thing about being a director, is I get these amazing opportunities to these amazing films, but then I know so much, and so it's hard for me to look at anything objectively. I see the 2.5 years. I can't look at just that one moment of whatever was we shot.
I mean, we're glad you got to make it. It definitely reminded me of like a lot of the mind-funky movies that you were talking about earlier, and that inspired you. So, super cool.
Thank you.
I want to talk about Repo, the Genetic Opera, though. So it's just almost a perfect film, in my opinion. How did the stars align, and can you just kind of take us through the process of making that film?
When I was doing the Saw movies, I had heat, and I could, at that point, do whatever I wanted, kind of. And the fact that I'd made 3 very successful movies back to back to back. And so I said, I was bored as a filmmaker and as an artist. I wanted to do something that I thought was cool. I think the movies that I'm attracted to now, and I've realized it, if you look at my career it's the last year. In the last year, let's say 24 months, I made Abattoir. I flew to Japan and directed and produced a Japanese TV show in all Japanese dialogue. I opened an immersive theater company in Los Angeles where we kidnapped people and threw them in backs of vans, and now I'm here making a movie set in a convent in 1950, an all-girls convent. My kind of trajectory for my career is what the fuck. I want people, every time they look at it, go, what the fuck is Bousman doing now? And I think to me that's cool, and that's kind of what happened with Repo, is that I made 3 of the exact same movie, just different versions of it, and I needed to do something creatively that I wanted the audience to look at it and say, Paris Hilton and Ogre, are you fucking kidding me? And that's what I want to do, and that's what I wanted to do. And so I'm a huge rock and roll, I'm a huge music fan, but I love rock operas. I love Rocky Horror Picture Show. I love Tommy. I love Jesus Christ Superstar, Forbidden Zone. These are movies that I grew up on. I think those movies inspired me more than horror films at the time. I just loved the absurdity of them and the kind of flamboyancy of them, and just I remember when I saw Rocky Horror the first time, I was so upset and in love and turned on and disgusted all at the same time. I just wanted to relive that. So that's where kind of my love of musicals and Repo and The Devil's Carnival all came from.
The cast is amazing, as Drew said, for Repo. All have great talents musically, but then how did you get Sarah Brightman from?
Sarah Brightman was the craziest story that I still don't even believe it. So we had, at that time it was a different cast. Patrick Swayze was Repo Man, and this is a crazy. I'll tell you the Patrick Swayze story in a second. But so we had another opera star. I'm not going to tell you her name, but she was a pretty well-known opera star in the circle of opera people, and she was just she was a bitch. And thanks. She was a bitch, and she came on and she had an attitude, and she had like this. She had writers in her contract, like the classic 24 green M&Ms and 14 brown M&Ms. And I wasn't playing that. I do not suffer fools lightly, and I was not okay. Because you have the crew that's busting their ass. We're all doing this for no money. And you have someone that's holier than thou that comes in and like she thinks her farts don't stink. And it just made me angry. I just got angry. And Terrence, myself, and Darren Smith had worked so hard to get to this point and to be on that soundstage to make Repo. We fired her, and we were like, we're not doing this. This was like a week away from filming, a week and a half away from filming, and we had no idea what the fuck we were going to do. And so Lionsgate was freaking out, the producers were freaking out, and we were like, are we going to dub someone's voice? What are we going to do? And then someone said, why don't you call Sarah Brightman? We all laughed. We were like, Sarah Brightman's never going to take her fucking call. And the next afternoon, I'm in a production meeting, and this guy named Jonathan McHugh, who was the music producer, walks over, and he didn't tell me who it was. He hands me a phone. He goes, yo, Bousman. I'm like, who is it? He goes, it's Sarah Brightman. And I pick up the phone, and I was like, hello? And she goes, hello! And I was like, who is this? And she goes, and this is exactly, she goes, it's Sarah! And I was like, Sarah fucking Brightman? And she was like, it's lovely, I love it, I'll be there tomorrow. And she came in and was down to party. She was the most cool, laid back, chill, no drama, just amazing person. And so to go from this like second tier, third tier opera person that thought she was amazing to Sarah Brightman, the world's biggest opera singer. And that's how someone should be. It was a family affair. The thing which is another thing which was crazy about Repo is that even Paris, who you think has this grandiose personality of 15 dogs and entourages, she was the same way. Everyone stayed in the same shitty hotel and ate the same food and hung out every night. And there was no drama, there was no ego with anyone, including Paris, Sarah, no one. And I think that's why the movie worked, we all loved what we were doing. Regarding the Patrick Swayze of it, that was crazy. I wanted Anthony Stewart Head from the beginning. He was always my number one choice. I had seen Once More with Feeling, the Buffy musical, and I was in love with it. And so when they told me that I could make it, they said, Repo Man has to be, I think it was like John Bon Jovi or Lenny Kravitz. It was like, they gave me like two names. And I was like, no, I want Anthony Stewart Head. And at that time, they were like, who's that? And I was like, he's in Buffy. And they said, absolutely not. We're not making this with him. They wanted a name. They wanted a big name. And so I kept pushing the Anthony Stewart Head of it all, and it was a no-go. So they presented me with a list of names, and I ended up meeting with Patrick Swayze, and he was awesome. Patrick Swayze was great. And he's got a great voice. And he came into the studio, and he recorded all the songs. We have all of his music. And this is a crazy story. I don't know how much of this story I've told in public before, but I was in the middle of posting Saw 4, and I flew into Los Angeles to meet Patrick Swayze for the first time. And he'd already recorded the music, and just a nice fucking guy. And I'm sitting across the table from him at the Hotel Roosevelt. I'll never forget this. And we're sitting there, and he's passionate, and he's talking, and his phone rings. And he goes, oh, I'm so sorry, Darren, I got to take this. And he walks away. And as he walks away, I'm following him. Because I love Roadhouse. I love Dirty Dancing. And I'm watching this guy, and he's walking away. And then I see him, like, it's the color drain from his face. And I see him slide against the wall, and he starts punching this thing in front of him. And he's like, don't say that, please, God, don't say that. And then he's like literally just like huddled almost in the fetal position. And I'm like, oh my God, like what do I do? I don't know him well enough to go say something to him. And he comes back over and he goes, I have to go, I just got some bad news, I have to go. And he leaves, and a week or two later, it got announced that he quit. So he leaves. The next day we find out that Patrick Swayze is dropping out of the project. And then a week later, on the front of every magazine was he was diagnosed with cancer. So that's how we lost Patrick Swayze, and then it came back at that point that I got to get Anthony Stewart Head.
from them. So that was a crazy like moment to be at.
So you actually have all the music recorded with Patrick Swayze?
Not all of it was everything. We had numerous songs. Like we had Thankless Job, Night Surgeon, and I still have his audition, which is amazing. I recorded everyone audition, and I had some funny people come in, like Barry Bostwick came in and auditioned for Repo Man, and again, I'm a huge Barry Bostwick fan, as he was in Devil's Carnival. But we have Swayze's audition, we have Bill Moseley's auditioning for Repo Man. So at some point I want to release all those. Like I would love to release Patrick Swayze's auditions. He's just amazing.
So you're obviously a fan of film. Goodfellas is one of my favorite movies. So getting to direct Paul Sorvino, what is that like?
I feel like I'm just up here shit talking. I don't mean to. It's because they're all awesome stories. I want to tell you awesome stories. We hated each other when he first worked. So again, who doesn't love Goodfellas? I mean, like again, he is the quintessential, like amazing, thuggish, lovable grandfather dude. And so I was excited as hell to work for him with him. And the first day he was very confrontational with me, very standoffish. And the second day it was worse, and on the third day he quit. And then the producers talked him out of quitting, and then I wanted to fire him because I couldn't stand to be in the room with them. And then something happened, and it was just like a love affair, and it was like, I can't even explain it to you. So he had tried to quit, I tried to have him fired, and then we did the song Gold. And when he did Gold, I quickly went home and edited it together, and I showed him Gold. And the whole rest of the shoot was kind of contentious, but not really. It was civil, but he was the first one I showed Repo to when it was done. I felt like I needed his validation. And I remember I flew to New York, and I screened it for him in a private thing, in a private theater, and it was this amazing moment that I'm sitting and I'm pacing back and forth because I knew that he would be my harshest critic. And the movie ended, and he's sitting there, and he's like just staring at the screen. And he stands up and he walks out of the theater, and I remember I followed him, and we walked down the street, and he goes into a restaurant, and he sits there, and he says, "I'm sorry." He was like, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." He's like, "I questioned you and Tarrant. I didn't understand the movie we were making. Any movie from this point on you want me on. Anything you want me to do. If you want me to be a background extra, I'm there for you." And now Paul and I have been extremely good friends ever since. I go to his house for dinner. We have glasses of wine on his terrace. And I've asked him to be extras in a lot of my movies.
What does a Paul Sorvino dinner consist of?
Oh my, exactly what you think it does. I shit you not, it's the pasta boiling, the Italian opera playing, him slicing the garlic. And it really is. Like, I remember that before we did Devil's Carnival, Terrence and I went to his place, and you thought you walked into the prison scene in Goodfellas, like with the smells and so Paul Sorvino, I can say, is probably one of the most sweet, amazing, just badass dudes. I went to a club with Paul Sorvino. That was awesome. Because you think, like, Paul Sorvino's in his mid-70s, and he walks into a club, and that guy's got more vigor than I fucking do. I mean, he's out there dancing and talking to ladies and ordering drinks. So how was it working with Paul Sorvino? Rough, and then became amazing, and now he's a dear friend, and he'll be in everything I do. I'm going to try to convince him to be a nun in the convent, too. I think he's good like that.
So, we heard that there was a little bit of tension between Shawnee and Tobin on set. Is there any truth to that?
Not that I know. I mean, I don't remember that. I remember when we made the Saw movies, maybe it happened later on, but one of the things that was crazy is, and I think, again, why the Saw movies work so well, is we would kind of do a workshop roundtable because Shawnee knew Amanda better than I did. Tobin knew John Kramer better than I did. So what happened is that when I would take over from the directing responsibilities, Lee would write a script, or Patrick and Marcus, we would then sit around the table and we would start changing things. And so we would say, what would Amanda do? What would Tobin do? And there were moments that some of their choices might reflect negatively on the other person, meaning that I think I want to do this, but that would completely contradict his scene. But I never saw any fistfights break out. So yeah, I wish I had some great dramatic story, but I don't remember anything between Shawnee and Tobin. So I could make some shit up though.
Yeah, what can you make up?
Yeah.
Marcus Dunstan and Patrick Milton wrote Saw 4.
Yeah.
First, talk about what it was like, working with them as they went on to do the collection, And then also, I read that you didn't want to direct Cell 4. What brought you back?
Repo. Repo brought me back because at that point I knew that if I made Cell 4, I was going to have a chance to make Repo. Patrick and Marcus are great. I think that it was Saw needed new life, and not that Lee's a fan. Lee's probably one of the best writers I've read, but I think at that point we were all starting to get tired. Like Lee had been involved since Saw 1. I had done numerous Saw films, and we had the same camera crew, the same DP, we had the same actors. It became a little bit like a repertory theater, very incestual. And so I think that them coming in sparked new life into it, which it needed to. So I think that's, I mean, it seems like a different lifetime ago. I mean, it's been a decade, it's been over a decade. It's been like 11 years ago since Cell 4 came out. I've lost a lot of hair and gained a lot of weight since then, so I still have trouble thinking back to that.
So where did the idea of the Devil's Carnival Roadshow, how did that come about?
It's kind of my future, what I think the future of filmmaking is, or the future of entertainment is. And I'm going to answer that, but I spent the last year of my life working on this thing called the Tension Experience, which is my progression of the Repo Roadshow and the Devil's Carnival Roadshow. Basically, people are zombies. We're all zombies now. You know, I was out there walking around, and as I'm walking around, I'm seeing everyone's on their cell phone. They're at this horror convention, and there's beautiful half-dressed women and men out there, but we're on our cell phones. And right before I got here, I went to a bar, and I was sitting in the bar with my cinematographer, and I looked around, and it was a sea of fucking cell phones. And people are so buried and consumed with these 7-inch screens, they forgot how to be present. They forgot how to just be. And so with the Devil's Carnival and Repo, I wanted to give people a reason to leave their house. I wanted to give them a reason to be with a group of like-minded weirdos, to dress up, to have fun, and say, hey, for fucking 2 hours, put your shit down and be present. Sing at the screen, yell at the screen, throw things at the screen, dress weird, but be here, be now. And so it wasn't that the movies were good, it wasn't that the music was good, and I think they both are. I think the movie and the music is good. But I think it was more about a sense of community. It was about a sense of being together for something that you guys can all congregate and just be weird with. That's where they came from. It came from an idea of stop being passive and be active. And that kind of bled into everything that I'm doing now, which is not making movies for a theater, making it for an experience. And making it for something that requires you to be present, that requires you to get out of your house. I have no desire to make straight to Netflix shit or any of that anymore. To me, it's about do something that will have an impact. Do something, even if it's one time. In that one moment, you'll have an impact, and you'll remember where you were when we were there. And that's why the Devil's Carnival Roadshow began. And I think Terrence is continuing that on now with American Murder Song.
On the small screen, you were involved in a series created by Mick Garris called Fear Itself. Talk about how you got involved in that.
This is so crazy. The horror community is so small in Los Angeles, and you get invited. I don't know what the criteria is to get invited, but you get this ominous phone call one afternoon after you've hit a certain level of movies or something, and it's from Mick Garris. And for those that don't know Mick Garris, he's done 90% of Stephen King movies. He calls me and invites me to this thing called the Masters of Horror Dinner. And it's a secret location, and I guess it literally feels like the horror Illuminati. You get a secret location, you have to show up by yourself, and you get out, and there's Rob Zombie, and John McNaughton, and Guillermo del Toro, and Quentin Tarantino, and Eli Roth, and Edgar Wright, and James Wan, and it's literally the who's who of horror all sitting around this table. And he did that because he wanted the horror community to just be a community. And out of that, he had this thing called the Masters of Horror. And that was a lot of the old school guys, like the guys that I grew up watching, the Tom Hollands, the Joe Dantes, and they had a show called the Masters of Horror. That kind of spawned into Fear Itself, which is the one that I went off and did. But it's just a group of filmmakers that got together and wanted to have a good time and wanted to do something kind of around the studio system. And that's what he did. And I think that continued. I mean, people are still trying to do things like that, with like Tales of Halloween, which I did. It's fun to make things with your friends. When you get rid of the bullshit, you can actually just make cool, fun things. That's how Masters of Horror started. That's how Fear Itself kind of happened. That's how Tales of Halloween began.
Tell me a little bit more about this company that you run where you kidnap people.
Has anyone here heard of the Tension Experience at all? it's the most proud I've been of anything I've done, and there's nothing I can explain to you that's going to make it make sense here, and then we're going to sound like a lunatic even talking about it. Have you seen The Game, the Michael Douglas movie, The Game? It's what we do. And you basically sign up 9 months in advance. You have to sign numerous waivers. You have to show up to places where you're interviewed. We keep a file on you, a dossier on you, and then you'll be activated at any time, and you don't know when it's going to be. It could be in your office. It could be in the middle of the night. And like, here's an example of stuff that we'll do. I'll give you a couple of things we did this last one. We're about to start a new one called the Lust Experience, which is starting very soon. But like, here's something that would happen on the Tension Experience. After you would go through the numerous steps of like our vetting, we would have everything about you. We would know where you worked, we'd know who your wife is, who your husband is, where your job is. We would do something in the middle of the night. We would call spoof you. So your phone would ring, but it would be from someone that you know, but it's really us. And then we could spoof text messages, emails, and we'd tell you to go places. And when you'd go there, someone would walk up to you and hand you an envelope, and it would say, get in the black car that's coming down the street. You turn around and the black car is coming down the street. You get in the black car, and they put a hood over your head, and you would have no idea where you're going. You drive for 40 minutes, arrive in a warehouse, and there would be numerous actors that you'd have to interact with. And you were following a mystery about a cult. And this started in February of last year and went through November of this year. And it culminated in this huge event called Ascension, which was in a warehouse downtown. It was a 45,000 square foot warehouse, 65 actors. And you dictated your journey. So the choices that you made would dictate what happened to you. You could overthrow the villain, you could save the girl, you can kill the girl and side with the villain. Your choices was everything, and you never knew where we stopped and the real world began. So you would have no idea if it was us or if it was actually other pretend. You would have no idea. And again, it was the idea of a new way to tell a story. It was a story you were following. It was about this cult and this actress, but it was, we embedded ourselves into your everyday life. You had to be present and you had to be active. You had to go to numerous places around Los Angeles. You had to interact with people. You had to meet up. You'd have to share secrets. You'd have to go to view things together. And it was, again, an experiment for me about not being lame and doing what everyone else is doing. Like, why am I going to go make a movie for someone to watch on Netflix? I love Netflix, but if my movie's on page 87 of the horror thing, I don't need that. Like, seriously. So I want to do something that's, again, kind of challenging how narrative stories can be done. That's the same way I made Repo. So Tension was that kind of next, I guess, the next phase of that in my life.
So how long would somebody be involved in something like this?
Some people for 9 months. But if you off the street wanted to go to Tension and you heard about it, you could buy a ticket to an event called Ascension, which is the truncated version. And it's about a 3.5 hour experience. It starts, you get a time to show up at a intersection, and then we take you for 3.5 hours. It's not a haunted house. No one jumps out and screams boo. No one wears stupid masks. It's not what it is. It is a completely psychologically breakdown of you. We break you down as a person. And I would say that 50 or 60% of the people would leave in tears, just bawling, not out of fear, out of just we psychologically break you down. And it was the most impactful thing as me as a filmmaker, because I'm sitting in front of a wall of 100 monitors, and I'm watching every angle and hearing everything going on. And we're controlling all of these actors to do all these different things. And it was uncomfortable, and we put you in some uncomfortable positions. Like, I'll give you, since the first experience is over, I'll give you an example of something like you walk in and you have to fill out a very intrusive questionnaire. And it's a 7-year-old woman who's sitting there with you, and she's sitting there and she's holding your hand, and you have to fill out this questionnaire. And then she takes you back into another room where these other 2 elderly people are dancing, and they're asking you really inappropriate questions. And they say, okay, well, let's begin. And then they take you into a room, and you're in a room, and it's literally a wall of people standing there, and they say, take your clothes off now. Take your clothes off now. And you have to strip down, and they give you a jumpsuit you have to put on, because we're trying to make you take away your individuality. We're trying to make it so everyone's on the same playing field. And so in 5 minutes of the experience, you're literally broken down from everything that makes you you. Your hoodie, your jeans, your shoes, and everyone goes through it exactly the same. And so it was a harsh thing, but it was also, it's not extreme. You didn't get hit, you didn't get dunked underwater. It's not what it is. It is a psychological narrative story told with you as the star. You are the star of your own movie. You are Michael Douglas from The Game. And so We did that, it just ended, the first one called Tension, which was based on fear, and we're doing Lust next, which is a sexual-based one. And then we're doing Adrenaline after that, which is an action-based one. So the idea is we're doing Tension, Lust, Adrenaline, Nefarious, Experience. So Lust is about to start.
So these are just random citizens like you, or anybody in the audience could sign up for this?
They could. Anyone can do it. And it was crazy. We would have anyone from, a random person off the street to celebrities coming through this thing.
Yeah.
The longer we were open, the bigger it got. It's kind of like Sleep No More, if you guys ever heard of Sleep No More in New York, except it's a much more extreme version of that.
It's amazing. I'd like to give it a try. Anybody in the audience have a question for Darren?
You're killing me, guys.
No question.
How different was it to shoot music videos?
Again, I think the music videos led me to make Repo. I love music. Like in my former life, if I could have been a musician, I would have. And so I think that for me, getting to sit in a room, with the guys of Bauhaus, or, if all of the people that played on our albums, I think that's, to me, I just love it. There's so much energy in there. So again, doing the music video stuff for me was kind of like me living vicariously through these musicians. I've only done a few. It's crazy. As much as I love music, I've only done a few videos. I did one for Static X, Mudvayne.
I love Static X.
Yeah, I did one for them. So I've only done a few videos. Before I did Saw 2, though, it was funny. I was working with Snoop Dogg, and I was going to do a video for Snoop Dogg, and then I got Saw 2. So maybe we should circle back and try to get that Snoop Dogg video going. I think it's cool about music videos is it's only 2 or 3 days, where a movie is 2 or 3 years. So yeah, I think after this next movie, I'm going to kind of stay away from movies for a while and do more things like music videos and these immersive experiences that I'm doing. Yeah.
Good.
Just saw Abattoir, so obviously I don't want to spoil it for the ending, but it's extremely personal motivation for the film.
Yeah.
And it kind of blowed my mind a little bit.
Thank you.
And I wanted to know where did that obviously must come from something very personal with yourself as well. It felt very personal.
For me, I think that you always have to humanize the villain. The villain isn't human, and he's just a monster. And to me, monsters themselves aren't scary. What makes them scary is when one of my favorite movies, and I always reference this about why I love horror and why I got involved in horror, is Last House on the Left, the original Last House on the Left. There's a moment with Krug and all of his band of cronies have just raped a girl, and she's lying there, and she's covered in blood, and they're all kind of laughing, and then they stop, and they look down at their hands, and their hands have blood on them, and they're picking the grass off their hands, and they all are disgusted by what they've just done. And Wes Craven spends like 15 seconds cutting from face to face, and you see just disgust, like what did we just do? And that was more disturbing than any shot in that movie, because he was giving humanity to these killers, these rapists, these horrible people, and he allowed them to be vulnerable for 1 second. And I think to me the best villains are vulnerable, and they're doing it for a reason. Tobin Bell wasn't crazy. Jigsaw wasn't crazy. He had a message. It was a perverted message. He did it in a very fucked up way. But at the very end, there was a reason for it. I think that for me with Jebediah Crone, I wanted there to be a reason. There needed to be a reason why he was doing it. At the same time, Abattoir is about family, and at that time, my wife was pregnant, so I was about to be a father. And I realized what I would do for my family, and I think that's what it is. What would you do for your family? And in that case, both Julia Taubman and Crone are both motivated by trying to save their families.
If not, everybody please put your hands together for the one and only.